Sick with the slang, sick and I'm destined for fame. Do for the fam, not for the gram. Stunting, you're destined for pain. I do not front, I do not scam. Put some respect on my name. Sick like Cobain, click and I bang. Y'all gon' remember the name. Y'all gon' remember the name.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world? Welcome back to Real Talk with Zuby. Today, I've got on a fellow musician. It's good to talk to another fellow musician. This is Yellow Red Sparks. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you, Zuby?
I am very well, thanks, my dude. Whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm in California, Southern California.
Awesome. Sunny California. That seems to be where it's all at right now.
I mean, there's good and bad. I wouldn't start a legit business here.
Too much tax?
It's pretty hard. Too much tax. There's too many permits. There's too many things you got to solve, and it's just not worth it. You would literally have to hire someone, even if you're a tiny business. So.
Oh, really?
It's just, I feel like if you want to go legit, legit with the state and everything. So.
Oh, fair enough, man. Fair enough. So, your real name is Joshua, yeah?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna call you Josh, because calling you Yellow Red Sparks every time might feel a little bit weird.
Awkward, right?
What's the origin of that name, though?
Actually, it was one of the first songs I wrote as a solo artist, and it actually didn't come to light till years later. But the song was called Yellow Red Sparks, and that actually ended up on my debut record. So the record's called Yellow Red Sparks. There's a song called Yellow Red Sparks, and the project was called Yellow Red Sparks. But the name is kind of like this. For me, it kind of means passion now. Then it meant sort of like this duality that we struggle with light and dark of us, and like yellow is kind of like this mellow sort of vibey, chill vibe, and then the red is like this fire inside of us that wants to change the world, that wants to do stuff, and it's this like battle between these two things. So that was like the complex thing in my head, but now it just means like passion to me. So
gotcha. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And how long have you been making music for?
Oh man, it's part of my existence. My brother's a touring musician. He tours with pop artists, and my father I grew up him just writing all the time, but he never pursued it. My mother sang professionally when I was growing up. So we call it the family curse, because like we don't have a choice. It's just in us. It's in our DNA now. It's just in our everything. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. And so did you grow up in California? Are you a California native?
I am, yeah, I am.
Okay. I haven't actually been to the West Coast yet, and I do need to make a visit. I know a lot of people over there now, so I do need to make it happen.
Dude, hit me up. We'll have a party. It'll be awesome. We'll go out and hang out, and we just have like really intense talks. Like people at bars, I think we're crazy.
That's fair enough, man. So tell me a little bit more about your life, like your growing up, your childhood, teenage years, whether that's inside, outside music, I guess anything that you feel helped to shape and guide you to where you are right now.
Like I said, like I grew up in a really musical home, so I was exposed to a lot of really great music. And I think it took me a long time to understand that people didn't see music the way I saw it. And it was really important to me. So yeah, growing up, I grew up in a really good home. I grew up in a Christian home. My parents built like a really strong foundation for the family. They're still together. They live 10 minutes from me. I have 4 kids. And I'm on my second marriage. I'm never been happier in my life. And I have sole custody of all 4 kids. So most men don't get that. And I'm just grateful, man. But yeah, growing up, just doing the Orange County thing. I surfed a lot, skateboarded, listened to music, got into trouble, and just then had to change my life, basically. But that's the gist of it,
Yeah, I get you, man. I get you. So what was it like growing up in a Christian household in California? I mean, I don't know. I'm obviously a complete outsider, but when you look at California from an outside perspective, it seems like one of the places that's I'm sure this is absolutely not the whole state. I mean, it's a huge place, but it seems like overall it's certainly compared to say like the American South or even just like middle America, it seems like there's religion in general, let alone Christianity, seems to have far less of a foothold there. It seems like more like atheism and some new age sort of stuff is more like the trendy thing there. I don't know if that's completely wrong, but that's like my very basic overview of what it looks like.
Right. Yeah, I definitely see that, and it's very true. I think like any place, there's a remnant, and I think that the church here is so watered down um, that I don't relate to it, and I don't think of the church as a building. So I think of things a little differently. And I read a book a long time ago called Pagan Christianity. I won't go into that, but the vibe in California is there's so many great people, but there's so many terrible people that it kind of overshadows everything else. So
Hmm.
you just got to find those niche kind of spots. And some I was going to a home church for a little bit, and then just started listening like more this guy Timothy Keller, and like I get my kind of feed or my fill of God through a lot of different mediums.
What are those?
I pray, dude, like a lot.
Okay, gotcha.
I relate to King David a lot, and just that wrestle with God,
Hmm.
kind of going in the closet and crying out to Him. So, like, I've always had a really intense relationship with God. So, church always felt really boring to me because it was so basic. And then I started finding people like Timothy Keller and C.S. Lewis and people that I thought were interesting. Um, and that's kind of my version of OC because I'm in Orange County area, which is even more what you're talking about.
Hmm.
So to me, the church is just really watered down here, and that's just a product of America, I think. So
Yeah. When you say
yeah,
watered down, what specifically do you mean?
I think it's kind of like feeding someone an adult like baby food, kind of like that's how I feel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I feel like they're kind of serving to like the really basic minds, I guess, and I understand that because it works probably better. But
Hmm.
it's just not for me. I could do that. I don't know. It's something I've struggled with, to be honest, going to church every Sunday because it's just really complicated for me. And also like it's kind of hard to find a church that works for everyone when you have a larger family.
Sure.
So like we've tried ways where we'll all sit down in the living room and listen to something together, or we'll all sit down and read something together and talk about it. So we kind of like make our family our church. But we also have friends and family that, keep us grounded and whatever that means, but just keeps us like so we don't go off the edge and we're like we're new age and Christ was this weird alien and he whatever. Like I don't I maybe he was, but I don't want to like go down that road. So that's what I kind of mean, if that makes sense.
So how does your faith influence your writing and your music?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think it's all over if you look at lyrics, but most people don't pay attention to lyrics. So I think it's pretty hard to like interpret if you read
Hmm.
my lyrics maybe. But a lot of the way I write is stream of consciousness, so a lot of it's kind of just coming out. So I think it is an act of faith that way, and then I
Hmm.
sort of will take whatever that throw up is or whatever's coming out of me and then organize it and turn it into something that makes sense.
I gotcha.
um, yeah, so that's kind of how I've always written. I've written other ways too, where I'm like, let's write a song about love, let's write a song about passion or heartache or whatever. But that's how I like writing, is very like connecting with my spirit and letting it just come out and picking up the guitar or playing on the piano and just seeing what comes out of me. And then the
Hmm.
melody will come, and then I'll, how it is, like you don't kind of know how it happens. It's this weird, mysterious thing how songs come to completion, for me at least.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
No, it's a difficult process to explain to. I mean, I'm an artist, obviously,
yeah,
so I
right.
get what you're saying, but
Yeah,
it's a hard thing to explain to somebody who's not a songwriter or not an
yeah.
artist.
Because there is that mysterious element that doesn't go away that you don't know. And that's why like when people get big egos about it, I think it's really disgusting because it's a gift. I didn't work hard to like to sing. I didn't work hard to have a gift for words. I
Yeah.
think it is a gift. And so I never think of it as like, oh, look at me. I think of it as this is kind of what I can offer to the world. And
Hmm.
if God can use it, that'd be awesome. If not, that's cool too. But I'm not going
Yeah.
to be like a worship leader.
Yeah, I
That's
get you,
just not
man. I'm a Christian myself as well, but
nice.
I don't categorize my music specifically as I don't categorize myself, say, as a Christian artist or as a Christian rapper per se. More like I'm a
Right.
rapper. I'm a rapper who is a Christian. Um,
Totally.
the reason I've had quite a few people actually ask me why I don't kind of corner that market or label myself that way and whatnot. And I mean, for me personally, it's twofold. Number one is from my own perspective, I don't want to limit my creativity to feeling like I can only talk about certain things and that every track has to, explicitly mention God or
Right.
Jesus or be like
And if
a
it
gospel
doesn't, you're
song.
gonna be
Yeah,
destroyed. Yeah.
exactly, and I think I
Yeah.
can be more honest as well because I don't want to paint a picture like I'm some, I think I'm I try as much as I can to be a moral and good person, but
Yeah. Totally.
we've all got our challenges, our struggles, our
Yep.
demons, and if you're gonna speak, especially in something like hip hop, if you're gonna
Yeah.
rap and you're gonna rap honestly and you're gonna
Yep.
really represent yourself, then and you're gonna keep it real, for lack of a better term, then you've got to be willing to go anywhere and everywhere with it within reason. That I don't rap about
Yep.
everything. There's some stuff
Of
I'd,
course.
I'd rather keep private, but I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to feel like I'm putting out a particular image and then I'm
Right.
now stuck in this narrow lane. The second one for me is not wanting to, end up in that situation where I feel like I'm just preaching to the choir, because
Yep.
people can be turned on by labels, but they can also be turned off by them. So
Yep.
if someone is an atheist or is of another religion or something, and they see, okay, this band, this rapper, this singer, whatever, is explicitly a Christian artist, they may not even just give it a shot just because they're like, oh, it's not for me. Just like
Right.
I don't buy women's deodorant. It would work for me.
Exactly.
No, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Totally.
like it would work.
Yep.
It's not like the formulation is completely different or something, but I'm like, oh, that's not marketed to me.
Right.
So
Right.
with me,
I
it's
don't
like,
relate to that scent. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So with me, it's like I'd rather, I have songs here and there where I've got certain lyrics where if someone listens to any of my albums, I think you'll clearly get the picture that
Yep.
I'm a believer.
If you're a believer, you will get the picture.
Yeah, exactly. Or
Yeah.
even if you're
Yep.
not, I mean, someone would certainly be like, okay, this guy believes in God, because
Right.
I do explicitly mention that in a few songs. But
Mhm.
if someone were to just listen to one song, it's not like a full
Right.
representation. So yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one. I mean, I know in the US, for example, there's like a big Christian music scene. We don't really have that in the UK, but I
Mm.
know in America, as a genre in itself, I know it's a pretty big category, it seems.
Well, it's really interesting because you said like I've had that too, where like, why don't you play worship, or why don't you make a Christian record or a folk record that's Christian? And I'm like, I am a Christian. What do you mean? But like, and I think I tell people, I'm like, look, God created everything. That means I have the freedom to sing about everything.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean I'm going to, because there's things in this world that have been corrupted. It has nothing to do with God. It's like, it wasn't his original intent. So I think it just takes wisdom. You've got to, I don't think there's any curse words on any of my songs, and that's deliberate because I think it would distract from the message of whatever
Yep.
the song is. And I think for songs, for me, like, I don't like explaining songs, the meanings, as much, because I've had songs where I thought it meant something to me, and then I found out it was like about a dog or something, and then it kind of strips that connection. So, you know what I mean? So yeah, but like the Christian music, I think what's interesting, Zuby, is like when you look back at the hymns and the passion in those lyrics,
Mhm.
and those were songs, and the music now today, if you looked at the two, they're so different, and the depth in those hymns, those old hymns or psalms, those two, it's like those were songs on harps or whatever, but they were very real. It wasn't to make you feel good, it was to relate to it.
That's
So
true.
but worship, I think, is different. Like, we worship through different means. We worship through the way we live our lives. You worship through honoring the Lord. We worship through songs. So there's many ways to worship. I think they just simplified it so much that it's just become a formula. And like, for me, I don't judge anyone that goes to church at all. I have so many friends that do. But for me personally, I don't like friends that try to force me, because I have my own relationship with God that I'm working out. And if that's how you want to work out, that's awesome. But like, I can also learn about God in any way, without, because we're the church in my mind. Like, the body of Christ, that's the church. It's
Mhm.
not a building. It's not a marketing plan. It's not. And I've worked in the church before as volunteer or whatever, and it's a business, and I understand that, and I get it has to. But that's not what I'm interested in as far as Christianity goes.
You can take out certain rules and guides, very basic moral principles from it, and you don't even
Hmm.
need to believe in God to believe in them. And
Yep.
if you act like that, then if you try to live like Jesus and emulate that
Yep.
as closely as you can, not like any of us are going to get there, then
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, you're gonna live a pretty good life.
Yeah. And if everyone thought that way, I mean, we'd be as close as we could ever get to utopia.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
But
I tell my wife this. I'm like, could you imagine if everyone just looked at themselves and what their issues are and how they are instead of, oh man, it would change the world. It
it's
would change the world.
Yeah, I know, man. If people tried to sort out their own problems and work on
Exactly.
themselves first and treat other people right, rather
Yeah.
than trying to point out the failings of others or the perceived
Yeah.
problems that you find in others, which oftentimes might just be in people's brains, then
Totally.
yeah, things would be a lot
Well, what's that
better.
verse, dude? The plank in your eye, you
Oh
know?
gosh, yeah, yeah, yeah. There's
It's like it's a perfect, you have a little sliver and but there's a plank in
it
your eye. Your brother has this little tiny splinter and it's just that's kind of how it is,
is
it's
true.
so true.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I was talking to another podcast guest a week or so ago, and he said something like, when he when he sees people acting up or getting all angry or outraged or caught up in debate, he's like, when did you last call your mother? Just call your mother right now. Like,
yeah,
don't
totally.
don't come at me with any negativity until you haven't even called your mom. Go call your mom.
Totally. I like that. Can I use that?
I
That'll
love
just
that.
like
I was like,
diffuse any situation, I think.
yeah, I love that. I was like, when did you last speak to your mother?
That's good.
You haven't spoken to your mom for 2 weeks, then don't
That's
come.
why you're lashing out.
Yeah, don't come criticizing me because you're not even doing what you're supposed to do.
That's awesome.
So, out of the songs that you've made, what has gotten the biggest traction? What's had the biggest response?
The biggest response was a song called Monsters with Misdemeanors. There's a really big I think it's the biggest competition in the world. It's called the International Songwriting Competition.
Yes, I've heard
And
of.
yeah, so I won the grand prize, which was
Oh wow!
25
Oh
bucks. Oh, yeah, for that
congrats!
song. So, yeah,
Congratulations!
thanks, man.
That's
Yeah,
big.
so like that, yeah, that was God, man. Like that was it doesn't even make sense that I won it. Like if you hear the song, it's not like a pop song. It's very maybe it is a pop song. Maybe like when you write songs, you lose perspective. Like you're so close to it, you're like, I don't know what the single is anymore. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
you know. So it was kind of one of those things that was a God thing, but that was definitely like life changing for me because I got a bunch of gear too that I sold and like it was 25,000 cash, but there was a ton of gear that I sold too that I
Wow,
got. So yeah, that was definitely huge for me.
good
Yeah.
windfall.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to actually remember how we initially connected on Twitter. I connected with you on Twitter like I did with most of my guests, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to actually remember. It was some point last year.
Mm.
I I'm actually trying to. I don't know if you
I
know.
think I noticed you online. Someone shared you and then I liked what you were putting out like content. And then I just followed you. So yeah, that was probably like a year ago, right? Maybe or
Yeah, it
I
was.
don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
I'm
it was
so
some.
bad with time.
Yeah, last year my American following on Twitter just shot up like crazy. I mean, most of my Twitter followers are now American, which is funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you attribute that to, you think?
A couple, like literally a handful of viral tweets that just
Oh,
went,
nice.
yeah, that went nuts in
That's
America.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, previous to that, I think only about 10% of my following was in the USA, and now I can go on the stats, and the majority is in
Dude,
the
that's
USA.
awesome.
And the majority of the podcast listeners are also in the USA, which is also interesting. So,
Hmm. Maybe
yeah,
you're gonna come out in store here.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah, I'll definitely have to do that at some point, man.
Yeah.
So one thing I have noticed on your Twitter is that you certainly seem to be quite outspoken.
Yeah.
So you're not hesitant to share your.
Yeah.
I get the feeling, like, I don't know your exact political views, but I get the feeling
Right.
that you've got some that might not be so common nor popular
Yeah.
in the world of music, let's say, because
Right.
as much as people promote diversity, people don't tend to like too much diversity of thought when it comes to the
Yeah.
entertainment world. And I don't know how far that goes, but you're out there in California, so you can tell me.
Yeah. A couple years ago, I've hated politics, dude. Never paid attention to it. Never got involved. Never. Nothing. Didn't know anything. Still don't feel like I know anything.
Yeah.
And I still don't like politics. So I try to keep what my personal beliefs on politics to a minimum as much as I can. But a couple years ago, I think I was actually a Bernie supporter at first. I didn't understand socialism at all. But
Oh gosh.
I had never no I had never
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like you don't like my life, dude. I had my first kid when I was in high school, so like my whole life has been working and trying to support my family, and then I went through a custody battle. So there's all these things that prevented me from learning about certain things, but I wasn't interested.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it became interesting to me 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whenever it was.
What was the
Yeah.
catalyst for it becoming interesting?
The DNC scandal with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the questions going to Hillary, with the Donna Brazil. There were just a lot of things. The Bernie stuff didn't add up. He
Okay.
endorsed Hillary Clinton after completely talking trash on her forever. There were just so many things that didn't add up, and I was like, "Is this how our world works?" And then I just
Okay.
started digging more and more, and then I was like, "Wow, this is like way worse than I thought." Okay, like I've been asleep. So I just really felt I got to a place where I just felt like I didn't have a choice anymore. I kind of had to speak up because I saw it getting bad. And I was like, if this continues, like we're gonna kill each other.
Mm.
Um, and that's really what I want to avoid. Like I think we need to love each other. I think we need to reach out to the left more. I think we need to just have conversations. It's like, how do we not have conversations? Like, why can't someone go have a conversation with AOC? Why can't we have a hybrid of all these ideas and figure out a new system if we want? Or we can create anything. Or if you guys have a problem with like this is one of the things. Okay, people have a problem with capitalism, but the people that are taking advantage of capitalism are Facebook and Google and Amazon. It's like you're all the people saying how these monsters will be created through capitalism, but
Uh,
you're the monsters.
a
Yeah,
lot of
no,
people who criticize capitalism also do not actually know what it is. Yeah.
exactly. Like I actually want to start studying capitalism now because I'm like maybe there's checks and balances they wrote in there that we're not following. I don't know. Like
Mhm.
honestly, I don't care that much, but I know that this is like I don't have to understand capitalism because I live in a capitalist society. So
Yeah.
like, but I want to understand what the original intent of it was,
Hmm.
because I can see bad things with it totally.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Apart from like anarcho-capitalists, I mean, even most people who are very pro free market capitalism are
hmm.
aware that you don't want gigantic monopolies
Right, like
forming, right?
Google
And
and Twitter and
yeah,
Facebook.
well, for example, you would not want all those companies you just mentioned joining into one
Right.
huge super company, right? You don't want Amazon, Google, Apple, and Facebook. Imagine if they
Yeah.
joined into one corporation, right? That's terrifying.
See what
So
I think though, Zuby? I think they're already joined, just not officially.
yeah, I know.
I really,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
they
yeah,
certainly are. I mean, there's actually a
yeah.
case in terms of promoting a free market. There's actually a case for some of those to be broken down into some smaller subsidiary companies. So
Okay,
as much as I am pro free market, pro capitalism, I mean,
yeah,
even people like myself generally understand that you don't want to let everything get too big and too monopolistic. So just like I don't really like the terms the left and the right for a lot of reasons because I think it's kind of
yeah.
I think it propagates the division. But
Totally, I
typically,
agree.
yeah, but people who are typically more conservative tend to be very wary of big government, and people who are
Hmm.
traditionally liberal tend to be wary of big corporations. And
Right,
that's actually like the common thing there is big is concentration of power. So anyone
correct.
who is a quite clued up citizen should be worried about the power going into the hands of, whether that's some huge Uber corporation or some
Yep.
huge communist style regime, Uber government,
Hmm.
which just dictates everything. Like those just end up badly for everybody. So you always want to have a healthy dialogue, a healthy balance to prevent things from swinging too far in either
Either
direction. And
direct. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
and as you alluded to earlier, that's the problem with the breakdown of dialogue because you need to be
Yep.
able to speak. I mean, really, if you've got an issue, whether this is with a one-on-one personal thing, a family
Yep.
thing, a bigger scale thing, a national thing, you've got like three options. You can either separate and ignore each other, or you can have dialogue and debate and discuss and work things out amiably, or
Mhm.
you can fight. Like these are the only
Yep.
three options. If you've got a
Right.
problem, if you've got a problem, you can separate, you can talk and work it out, or you can physically fight. And that's,
Yep.
I'm not aware of any other options. So once people stop talking to each other, once people stop viewing each other as individuals, as neighbors, as fellow citizens, as, children of God, to use a
Yep.
religious term, then things go bad. And you've seen that many times in history. You can just take a cursory look at the last 100 years, and you can see every time that has happened. It's just, like you said, we're far from that. But I think people need to realize that human beings are capable, both as individuals and as collectives, of incredible good, but we are also capable of incredible evil, probably far beyond what any of us individually would like to think any of us is capable of. Like it's happened. It's happened so
Yep.
many times. This is why I think reading some history is important. I'm far from a historian, but you can look at certain periods in different places and you're like, wow, like people just let the devil, the shadow, Satan, evil, whatever it is, they
Right.
just let it completely take root. And all those other good things just kind of went out the window. And, people die, people starve, people hurt each other, and it's not pretty. So, yeah, you always want to maintain that dialogue and some semblance of a healthy balance.
Everything's really complicated, and I think we really want to simplify everything and label us into little boxes and whatever, and make quick judgments on people and all that, and that's not the way it works, man. Like if you really want to understand someone or something, it takes so much time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just sad that we've gotten to a place where we're just judging everyone, and the right and the left both do it. And to be honest with you, if this were happening to the left right now, I don't care what their views are. I would fight for them, because my biggest thing is free speech, free thought,
I'm with you on that.
free beliefs. Yeah. So like all the politics, like that's part of it, but to me, that's more distracting. I think the biggest thing for me is free speech. And
Mm-hmm.
also just like, we were founded on Christian principles, and we've lost that. We've removed God from this country. Can we talk about what the effects of that have been? Can
Mm-hmm.
we talk about maybe that might have something to do with it? Can we talk about what our kids are learning in school, and maybe some things aren't accurate? Like but we can't even have discussions. So it's just sad, and it's all by design. I think we've gotten to this place by design, and I think people, really powerful people knew what they were doing, or maybe they didn't, and it's a bigger presence. And I know who wins in the end, so it doesn't matter. Like I know
Yeah.
who wins in the end. And I think how Christ resonated with me is you said the root, and he always went after the root, and I could go, dude, I've never done this, I've never done that. It's like, have you hated someone in your heart? Because that's how murder starts. And that's what Christ understood. And that's what he told people, all of it starts in your heart. So if you allow, like you said, to have that darkness consume you, that's what Christ is trying to warn people. It's like everything was about the heart with him,
Yeah.
And I think that's what I hope we could somehow understand. Like the prostitute at the well, Jesus didn't see a prostitute. He saw her heart. He saw the dad that didn't pay attention to her. He saw the struggles when she was a child. He saw something that hurt her. He saw the hurt. And like I'm starting to see that more now, for the first time, really, like in a real way, where I see people differently, just going out to Costco or going to the supermarket. So I think the world's designed to make us judge everyone and all that. So I think it's changing though with decentralization of information. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I like to think that people actually that I thought that my information from CNN, a business, is accurate. Is
Yeah.
like I'm like, was I crazy? Like, was I stupid? What But now I feel like I have to protect myself from that. Like I don't, I don't even read certain things because I know it's gonna try and manipulate me. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's complicated, but yeah, like we're on the same page for sure. For sure.
Yeah, sure, man. I mean, the thing is, you can only, I think both of us are fairly outspoken musicians in certain ways, just
Yeah.
outspoken people. And
Right.
sometimes I wonder for myself where that comes from or where it came from, because I haven't necessarily always been like that. But as you
Neither have
said,
I,
I
dude.
mean,
Yeah.
like I think what most people do, and it's a sensible thing, is stick their head in the sand and
Mm-hmm.
hope that the problem will go away, or that it somehow won't hit them. You know what I mean?
Right.
The
Yeah.
the
Won't affect them.
no, the mob won't come knocking at their door.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know what
yeah.
I mean? Like people just
Yeah, totally.
let me just shut up and stick my head in the sand and carry on. But
Yeah.
I think with me it got to a stage where yeah, I was kind of seeing I guess like a bigger threat and
Hmm.
a bigger loss of sanity, right? Because
Hmm.
it wasn't that long ago that things felt a lot more sane and
Yeah.
there was a lot less division. You know what I mean? Like 5 years ago,
Oh,
nobody,
totally.
5 years
Even
ago,
like even four, yeah, five
dude,
for sure.
yeah.
5 years.
I
Yeah.
mean, you wouldn't ever see someone on Twitter accusing someone else of being a Nazi or a white supremacist or that like on a
Yeah.
daily basis, right? You weren't seeing verified people with millions of followers and blue check
Right.
marks calling calling for physical harm on children
I
or
know, man.
pushing certain things. And I'm just like, yo, like I'm just like, this is not normal. Like it wasn't always like this. So
Right.
what is, what's the deal here? And I wasn't seeing many other people fairly centrist, not heavily biased perspective commenting on things. And I was like, you know what? Like it's at the stage now where I feel like my silence is almost being complicit. Again, if you look
Hmm.
back at the
Yeah.
20th century, you look at how certain people got away with certain things, it's because nobody said anything. Nobody
Yep.
pushed back. People just shut up. Oh, it's not going to hurt me. Oh, they're not coming for
Yep.
me yet. They're not coming for me yet, right? And then
Yeah.
eventually they'll come for you. They'll take out the people on the fringes first. You've always got to start with
Yeah.
the people on the fringes because nobody wants to defend them. But then
Right.
as soon as they've gotten rid of them, I mean, there's always going to be somebody on the fringe. Like
Totally.
there's always going to be somebody. That circle gets smaller, it gets smaller, it gets smaller to the point where, you know, you'll have just a standard Republican, a standard conservative, a standard libertarian, a standard liberal
Right.
in some cases. And it's like, oh
Yeah.
no, like they're now deemed the person who needs to be silenced or shut down or harmed or gotten rid
Yeah.
of, you know.
Yeah.
And these people who are actual extreme, the problem with extremists is they think they're moderates. So you get
Totally.
right. So you get these people who are actual extremists, and then
Right.
they're so off center. Their idea of the center is so far removed that they then think that someone else who is in the center is a million miles away from them. You know what I mean? And yeah, and the problem with those extremist types is that they tend to be very angry and passionate and vocal. And somehow they seem to be getting in, you know, they seem to be actually gaining some power.
Scary.
Sometimes, yeah, it's scary. It's weird. And it's weird as well because this conversation I'm having, depending on somebody's worldview and perception on the world, they might not know what side I'm talking about. Or they might think
Totally.
that's how far it's
I
gone.
know.
This is
Yeah.
what I mean. Like I could be saying all this, and you know, someone's there nodding their head, like, yeah, that Trump guy's crazy. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And it's
Yeah.
like, I'm not talking about him. Do you know what I mean? Like that
Right. We
that
didn't, we haven't even mentioned him, I don't think. We actually
that's
mentioned I mentioned Bernie Sanders. I don't even think I mentioned Trump. You're right.
no,
Yeah.
no, that's the thing. And it's like, wow, like you know, the perspectives are just so far gone. You know what I mean? I'm like, look, I'm happy to I will criticize whoever is behaving
Yeah.
badly in my
Yeah.
eyes. What I mean? So if someone is calling for violence or doxing people or attacking children, literally, or whatever
Yeah.
the case is, then I'm like, I'm not on their side. Like I will criticize that. I'm not going to make excuses for, you know, especially when it comes to the US stuff. I'm like, I'm not even an American. Like
Right.
I don't have a
Right.
dog. I don't have a dog in this fight, right? Like I should probably be more concerned about the whole Brexit stuff in terms of politics, but I'm just
Right.
kind of
Right.
I'm with that, I'm a little bit more because I don't think it's I don't think the fever pitch, I don't think the division is as bad over here. You know, it's gotten worse here, but I don't
Yeah.
think it's again, I see stuff from a distance. I see stuff through the internet, which is always going to exaggerate things. But
Totally.
you know, in the US it does seem like over the past 2 years it's some things have gotten better, but it's like it looks to me, you know, the way people view each other, and there seems to be, and there's data on this. You know, I've actually looked at what people are actually saying, and
Mm.
you know, in terms of loving your neighbor as yourself, it certainly declined. It's sort of,
Totally. Yeah,
sort of
totally. And
fine.
like I think the fundamental thing that we both are coming from too is like we talked earlier about Christianity and being a worship leader or not a worship leader, but writing Christian music. And neither one of us want to be put into a box or labeled, and we want to be fluid. We want to have freedom to explore. And I think that's what this is too. It's like everyone
Yeah.
should be able to explore and find out who they are and what they believe, and that's a journey, and that's a cool thing. That's what's amazing about life. I think that's what life is. We're going to learn and grow, and that's what we should be doing, and obviously make a good impact on the world. But
Absolutely.
yeah, but it has to start in the family, dude. Like I really think like if we don't push that more, like the family structure, it just feels too far gone sometimes, and
Mm.
yeah, like in the UK, they kind of push how that's falling apart. Like what's your perspective on how things are there? Like it's always more mellow than social media for sure.
Sure.
But like do you have what is like how do you feel the vibe is in the UK?
The vibe in the real world is normal.
Right, right.
Okay.
But it could
Um,
change in an instant.
yeah, the vibe in the
Yeah,
real world is mostly normal. Like if I
right.
I go out my house in the morning or the
Yeah,
night, I travel to different cities. People are still normal. People aren't
yeah.
trying to punch each other up because
Right.
they voted for the wrong team or they wore the wrong hat. It's like people are generally normal. I mean, if you watch a lot of the news or you're really into politics, then there's obviously tons of talk about Brexit and deal or no deal or this is happening or that is happening. Funnily enough, the thing with me is I'm far more interested in culture and society and even psychology than I am, say, directly in politics. I'm not actually like
Yeah.
I used to be completely apolitical. I'm
Mhm.
interested in politics at like a high level in terms of how it influences or what the influence is
Mhm.
from society and culture and morality and religion. All these things are linked. So it's hard to be deeply interested in society and culture and not
Mhm.
sort of fall into having
Politics.
yeah, and not fall into having some political views or being or again being very religious or being
Yeah.
just interested in morality and how morality is shaped. I mean, I don't know if you've ever read a book called The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt.
I have not. You
Incredible book.
recommend it?
Absolutely. Completely changed the way
Awesome.
literally changed the way I understood the world. The
Hold up,
subtitle,
hold up, hold up. The Righteous Mind, you said? Because
The
I'll buy
Righteous
it
Mind.
today, man.
Yeah, it's called The Righteous Mind: Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion.
Okay.
And it's incredibly on point. It basically one of the biggest um enlightenment, one of the biggest like eureka moments for me reading that book was understanding that people who are traditionally conservative and people who are traditionally liberal operate off of different moral systems. He calls them morality matrices. So they actually have complete different pillars of what constitutes their morality. So what they think
Right.
is right versus wrong, it's actually different. So
Wow.
one of the reasons why it can be so difficult for people to see eye to eye on certain issues, especially hot button things like um, abortion,
Immigration.
yeah,
Yeah, or abortion, even worse. Yeah.
immigration, abortion, like stuff that's very rooted
Sensitive too. Yeah.
morally and sensitive, right? You know,
Yeah.
um, there are a lot of issues where, I mean, for me personally, the one that the one that jars me is abortion
Yeah.
because
Yep. Me
that
too,
is
man.
that's one where just like the moral basis of it to me, I'm
Yeah.
just like, gosh,
Appalled.
yeah, I like it disgusts me. Like it actually
Yeah.
appalls. If someone wants
Yeah.
higher taxes, if someone wants,
Right.
different board or whatever, like I'm like, okay, I might disagree, whatever, but I don't feel like I don't feel like a moral, it doesn't not like a moral punch in the stomach. You know what I mean? With that,
Totally. Yeah.
with that one, I'm just like, oh my gosh, when someone is there and their argument is, it's my body, I can do what I want. And I'm just like, do you not
I know. It's like, when
comprehend?
is it a separate body, though?
That's the thing.
Like, it's not really. It's always a separate
you know
body.
what I
Like,
mean? I'm
what are you
like,
talking about?
I'm not even talking about from a religious perspective here. I'm just talking
Yeah,
like
exactly.
a
Just rational.
human,
Human.
rational, scientific perspective here. How
Could you
can,
imagine the outrage if we were aborting puppies?
oh my gosh,
Honestly.
it's just weird. I mean, I heard someone
Yeah.
yesterday, literally, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and the guy said that he is in favor of aborting babies after they are born.
Did you know that they just passed a law apparently yesterday in New York that you can now abort a baby up till birth?
Yeah, well, that's the Democratic platform. That's what they actually
Yeah,
want. I know in
it's
that
evil, man.
yeah, I
It's
know in
evil.
that that's to me that's why I said like that particular issue. That's like a sticking point for me because I'm
Totally,
just
yeah.
what? Like how can you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm just like wow, that hopefully I don't know. Like
Like we're not even on the same planet at
yeah,
that
yeah,
point.
yeah. With that one, I'm like
Yeah.
I'm like I'm on a different planet, especially if someone's talking like late
Well,
term when it's not even where you can't even argue that this thing's not
totally.
a baby.
Like that's a baby, dude.
You know what I mean?
It's got everything.
If
Yeah.
someone's talking like first couple weeks, I'm like, okay, like this is more of a gray area
Yeah.
because
Like I
I
can understand why people would choose that and how they can
yeah,
rationalize it or whatever. And that's on them. That's between them and God. But the
yeah,
other stuff, yeah, it's
yeah,
unthinkable.
yeah,
Yeah, like yeah. And
it's
that we're even arguing it. It's crazy. Like
yeah,
we're even having, like it's
yeah,
crazy.
it's bizarre, man. So for me, that's
Yeah.
like a tricky one. But yeah, coming back to this book,
Right.
The Righteous Mind. Yeah. So, like, in summary, I hope I get this right. So, the liberal moral matrix is really based off of two principles. One is fairness, and one
Right.
is, what is it? There's like the Harm Care Foundation, and there's the Fairness Equality Foundation. So, and that's just like harm care is one of them, and fairness equality is one of them. So, the entire liberal worldview is basically based off of these two,
Hmm.
and conservatives have like six. Okay,
Well,
so
the fair thing is impossible.
so conservatives have these two, but then conservatives also have something like one of them is like sanctity, this idea of things being certain things, don't step on the flag, some
Yeah.
things just being almost holy. It doesn't need to be
Yep.
religious, but this idea of things being
It's
sacred.
respect. Yeah,
Yeah, that's one of
respecting it
them.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
respect authority is kind of
Hmm.
one of them as well. There's like I can't remember them all off the
So
top of
like
my head,
order
but
two or something, maybe like
yeah,
rules or law and order or something. Like it
yeah,
has to be that too, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the conservatives are basically more pro hierarchy and
Hmm.
respect and deference to authority in a way, shall we say? So,
Right.
like the whole moral framework is actually different. So, if you're talking about if someone thinks it's fine to step on a flag and you're trying to explain why no you don't step on the flag because it's like a sacred like that argument misses them
Right.
because they
They
don't
don't even hear it.
no because they don't factor that into to them that's not a moral factor.
Hmm.
And but yeah,
Right.
the book explains it all, and it's oh, and one of them is
I'll buy
also
it today, man.
yeah, dude,
You're
it's
like, and I
amazing.
wrote it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. And then
I
also
know, but
yeah, it talks a lot about religion as well and how religious beliefs also factor into all this stuff. And yeah, it
yeah.
just made me it made me really understand like some arguments I've had in the past with people. And
That were
I'm
just
just
pointless, right?
well, when it's just so hard to try to
Yeah.
understand the other
Right.
person's position, and then when I realized that what I'm actually basing my morality on does not completely align with what they are basing it on, and when you switch into that frame, when you think, okay, they're only thinking about,
These
um,
two things.
is this harming someone, and is this fair?
Yeah.
If that's what
Right.
someone is thinking of, and I'm thinking more conservatively, and I'm thinking of these other elements, then
Right.
we align on certain things, right? We're both saying, okay, it's bad to steal, it's bad to kill, it's bad to do this. Like take something like, I don't know, certain sexual behaviors. Okay.
Hmm.
People who are more
Yep.
liberal will just be like, there's nothing wrong with this. Whereas someone who's more conservative might be like, your body is a temple. You're like
Right.
that whole concept of your body being a temple. Your body is holy. You're made in the image of God. You're not just
Right.
you're not just an animal. You're like
Yeah.
there's something sacred about you. But cut any that doesn't cut it with them because they're just like that's they're like, huh?
Well, you have to have, yeah, totally. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I've had those conversations where I'm like, they're not hearing anything I'm saying, and
Yeah.
I'm hearing what they're saying, but it doesn't make sense, and they must be interpreting it that too. So that makes sense, like
Yeah.
they're hearing what I'm saying, but it makes no sense. And I think the foundation has to be God because when you come down to it, like, and it doesn't have to be my God, but you have to. If you look at the world, like, let's just say we're in a simulation, okay? If
Okay.
we were in a simulation right now, like an actual computer hard drive or something, that's still designed. So when I look out at the world, there's design, and I think, you know, we're designed to be in a committed relationship because it's more fulfilling in the long run. You go through struggles and stuff, but at the end of the day, you'll die with this person. You'll die for that person, your partner. I wouldn't die for someone I was casually having sex with. So that's not a good, you know, they don't understand the bigger picture, I think. And look, a single cell is really complicated. I don't understand it. So why wouldn't everything else be really complicated? You know, human nature is one of the most and that's what I'm interested in, is human nature, like the psychology, like you said, and all that. Like, why do we operate this way? What are we doing? Why do people make decisions that aren't grounded in anything at all, in any truth at all? You know, I think it says the fool in his heart says there is no God, and when you that's because if you look at the world, it's created, it's been designed, it's so complex. I mean, it's insane to think that, you know, maybe God said let there be light and there was a big bang, that's fine, but there's design behind it. You could have both of those make sense.
Oh yeah, one does not. The notion that science cancels out religion is it's a very juvenile understanding of what religion is.
But it feels like the dominant understanding.
Well, right? I think a lot of people who I don't think it's actually dominant, because I think that I mean, religious people, certainly on a global scale, are still the
right. So
I think that, like,
maybe it just seems louder. It's louder. You're right. It's not dominant. It feels that way because it's so loud. Yeah.
No, it's also what I almost think of as like a flaw of hyper intellectuality.
Right.
Because you're trying to apply science to something that science cannot be applied to.
Right.
I mean, if we want to talk about being completely rational, I mean, it's funny because, you know, here's another interesting thing in psychology is just understanding how even someone like myself, who considers himself deeply logical and rational, how emotion driven every single person actually is, and how we tend to, that's something they talk about in the book as well, how we tend to actually make decisions and make choices and then rationalize them later on. So we actually tend to just act on the emotion, and then the thinking and processing happens later. So if someone's explaining it, you can explain, oh, I did it because of X, Y, Z, but that's kind of after the fact in most cases.
Yeah. Totally. Yep.
But,
it's so interesting. I love. I can nerd out on that stuff forever because it really comes down to human nature, and that you have to come with the premise that we're all capable of all sorts of evil, and that you know, I could have easily killed Jesus or been against him. I could have easily killed Jews. My mom's Jewish, like, you know, and I've been called a Nazi. I've been called things. It's like,
so have I, bro.
She's a Messianic Jew. I know you have. And that's even more insane.
And you know what I
but you've been called a white supremacist. No, like, dude, Ali Akbar is one of my best friends, and he's on the ADL list as an anti-Semite, and he's been called a white supremacist. I'm like, it's really that crazy, and it's like, I can't reconcile it. Just, there's no way it could ever make sense. It's sheer insanity, and it's so sad because I really feel for these people, dude. Like, most of my friends are liberals in LA, and I've lost a lot of them, not due to choice. But yeah, they just, you know, there's a few that.
Tell us a bit more about that, man. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, over the last few years, I've gotten people have emailed my wife and said, I actually haven't even read any of the emails that people have sent her because I don't want it. I think it's toxic. And for someone that's known me for 10 years or 5 years or even a year, and then to make a judgment on me like that I'm now a racist and all these things, I think it's really, you know, I don't want that friend in my life anymore.
No. So is that literally just from people disagreeing with some of your political positions?
Literally. Never even talked to me about it, though. That's the weird thing. They don't talk to me about it. It's like a few people have DM'd me and said like something nasty, and I'm just like, whatever. I really, you know, at first it really hurt me. Like in the very beginning, it happened quite often. It doesn't really happen anymore, but it really hurt me. Like I didn't know how to understand it because it was, I took it too personally, I think. Now I understand that it's really not their fault. They're being lied to and deceived. So
and do you think
I feel for them.
Do you think it's because also you were very quiet about your views, or you didn't even have them beforehand?
I didn't have the views I have now, I don't think, but I definitely felt that I couldn't talk about my Christianity very much. In the
Okay.
music business, I definitely felt like there were certain things that I couldn't say that I didn't really have feelings about Obama, but if I knew that he was bombing a lot of people and doing weird stuff, I wouldn't have felt like I could talk about that because everyone in the business in LA assumes that you're them, and if you're not, they hate you. And I learned that early on. Like I learned that my views growing up did not line up with the music industry. My
Mm.
wife worked for a major label for 5 years, so I've been very involved in the music industry from different angles. I've never been able to go all in music because of my situation. It's unique. I can't tour having sole custody of 4 children. So
Sure.
we had 50-50 for a little while. But God changed that and I just went with it. So I think it's hard because yeah, maybe I didn't reach out, but I think hindsight, it's like I'd have to think about it a little more on my end what I did to contribute to that.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
I,
think
it's yeah, no, I don't think you've done anything wrong. I'm just curious because you
yeah,
hear stories, right? You hear about people, um, losing friends over
yeah,
political views. You hear about, families not
yeah,
talking to each other, wives and
yeah,
husbands breaking up, and all this kind of nonsense. But it's
yeah,
interesting, like you said, especially as, again, someone who is in California, which seems to be a hotbed for a lot of this stuff. I spoke to Matriarch last week, who's also based out in LA, and she was very passionate about some of the stuff she says that she can't talk about,
mm,
or is hesitant to, or is worried about repercussions inside or outside of the music industry, particularly the entertainment world. And that's really quite fascinating because
yeah.
that is a world which portrays itself as being the most tolerant, the most diverse, the no, really. I mean,
Yeah, no, it's the
it,
opposite though.
it's supposed to be the forefront of all this stuff,
Yep,
yet it's like there's still a very deep intolerance
very
for
deep.
another type of diversity, which is diversity of thought. With someone like myself, I mean, I'm completely independent, and I've always done my music independent, and I'm in the music business, but I don't really consider myself like part of the industry per se. Like I'm
You
not,
did it the right way, dude. That's the right way to do
I'm
it.
not, I'm not, I'm not in touch with labels and all
Yeah,
these
yeah,
people and whatever. And
yeah.
so I've always just been like, I mean, it's funny with me because I've become more outspoken as I've gotten older and as time has gotten on. But in
Right,
terms of my actual positions on things, I like they haven't shifted, right?
right,
I'm who I've always been. The only thing is I've started like tweeting some of it. Like if you know me
right,
if you know me in person, I've been talking about all this stuff for the last 10 years, and any private conversation, even group conversation, I'm
yeah,
like, whatever. You want to know my views on that? Okay, I'll tell you. Like
right,
I don't care. You know what I mean? I'm not worried about
right.
someone going, "Oh my gosh, he's a centrist." You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
oh my,
Now I got him. I can label him now.
you know what I mean? It's like there's no,
Yeah.
I don't hold any position politically,
Yeah.
socially, whatever. I don't hold any remote type of extreme or hateful position in the slightest. So
Right.
that's why I'm not worried about being authentic, because it's like I'm not worried about what comes out, because nothing nothing that is actually bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
no, but you know what I mean?
It's
Like there are extreme viewpoints,
of course. Yeah.
and some people do have them, and I can understand why they want to. It'd be better if they didn't have them, but it's understandable if
Right.
you don't want to shout about them. But with me, I'm like, I don't even have any, right? I don't
Right.
I don't I don't
Right.
have any. I'm just like a very standard. Yeah, well, okay, what's the
You're a
issue?
thinker. You're a
Yeah, I'm a
thinker
thinker.
and
Okay,
a
well,
problem solver too, right? Hey, here's a problem. Let's solve it. Instead, let's not solve it. Like that's literally what's happening. We just don't solve problems for some reason.
mm,
Like for decades. I mean, how long has immigration been a problem in America? Everyone's known it. Everyone said they're fixing it. It's like no one actually sat down to fix the problem.
no.
So it's really a difference between problem solvers too. Like a lot of men like solving problems,
Mhm.
but like why do we talk about problems if we don't want solutions for them? It just doesn't make sense. So yeah, I hear you on all of that.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
it's
it's
interesting,
so
man.
nuts. Yeah.
But
And I've learned a lot through the process, and I've grown a lot, and I've been humbled a lot, and I've lashed out at people that I love, within my own family, with just them not seeing part of what I'm seeing, and that's not right.
mm,
But I think we've all done that in certain aspects where we just want to be understood and heard and whatever. But at the end of the day, like, I don't think I need to have anyone understand me.
yeah,
I have a hard time understanding me. So why would I expect others to be able to understand me? And then I think I can understand others without even knowing them. It's pretty crazy. Like, if we just stopped for a second and thought about it a little more, or
yeah,
maybe, I don't know. Is it possible? I don't know. I want to read
yeah.
that book now because it's interesting. Maybe we can't hear each other at all, and that's sad. Like, can we repair that? Can we reconcile?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think it's worth trying. Yeah.
It's certainly possible, man. Like, this is going to sound like some sort of a closing statement, but
Yeah.
we all do have far more in common than we have that separates us. And I
Yeah,
think
but that's
as
not
long
what we
as
focus on.
no, but if
Yeah.
people, if people were to collectively sleep on it and think
Hmm.
about it, then
Yep.
I think everyone would come back. We live in this permanently online 24/7, 365
Hmm.
social media, crazy news cycle world, which is pretty new, which is hyper connected.
Hmm.
And we're
Yeah.
not designed, we're not evolved for this. So it's like, you know what, if everyone just like put down their smartphone for a day and just like thought about what we all have that we have in common and the idea of treating
Yeah.
each other kindly and actually, not as platitudes, right? People like platitudes, but it's like, no, actually do what you're saying. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
do
Exactly.
do what you're saying. You'll have someone who's tweeting about, I mean, sometimes you'll go, you'll go on someone's Twitter and
Yeah.
you'll see some really like nice, happy, let's all hold hands, friendly platitude. You like scroll down too, and they're like,
And there's all this hatred.
and they're just like cussing someone. You're just like, oh my gosh, man! Like, can you not see your
I
own
know.
hypocrisy here, man?
It's the
Just
plank, dude. It's back to
yeah,
that plank in their
it
own eye. They don't want to
really
see
is.
it. And it's hard to see your own faults. So I don't want to like drag this on, but like
No,
it really is hard to look at yourself because you're gonna see a lot of things that you don't want to see and you gotta deal with them.
mm,
And the sooner you do that, the better, because the longer you put it off, the harder it is to do it. That's how I think. And I think my dad put down a strong foundation to think, Joshua. Like why do you think, he would say. I would ask him all these questions when I was a child. Like, he said he couldn't even answer the questions, and he said, what do you think? And then he said you would go off and think for a couple hours, and then you come back and tell me what you thought. So I think we should think more, but I don't think people can, and they don't make the time for it. But yeah, if we could set our smartphones for a day down, everyone, I think it would change the world, maybe. And we all just had conversations for a day,
yeah.
unplugged. But
Maybe
yeah, man,
I'll become an activist and I'll promote it or something. We'll start a
I think
hashtag.
you're on your way, dude.
Awesome, bro.
Before we go, can I promote one thing?
Please do, my man. I was gonna ask you to.
Oh, cool. Okay. So I'm involved in a project right now. I'm the managing editor right now, and that role will probably change. But we're building something called Culture, and it's with 3 T's. The Twitter handle is at Culture, and it's CULTTTURE. So it's just Culture with 3 T's, and we're on Twitter, Instagram, all that. And I think that's all I had to pitch. I do have the Great Media Hoax, which is in the Hoaxed movie that Cernovich,
Mhm.
a song I wrote for that film is kind of gonna resurface. So if people want to check out that song, they can. And yeah, man, that's it. That's my spiel.
Awesome, Josh. Yellow Red Sparks, good to have you on the show, man. Keep doing awesome work.
Yeah, dude, I'll see you on Twitter when you come to the West Coast.
100%.